Hello again and welcome to the Guns Magazine podcast. I'm your host and the editor of Guns Magazine, Brent Wheat. We've got another great episode for you today. I'm talking to Tom McHale. He's the editor of American Handgunner Magazine and a fellow unindicted co-conspirator. Tom's written a book on reloading, and he's got some great ideas on ways to keep your reloading gear and supplies safe and organized. We're going to talk to him in just a minute, but first, here's a word from our great sponsor, preparedness.com. Prepare for those just-in-case situations with emergency food kits from 4 Patriots. Their survival food kits combine great taste with long shelf life, making them perfect to stash away for any emergency situation. The folks at 4 Patriots set up a special page just for our audience, so you can get this week's special discounts and deals. That page is 4patriots.com/gunmag. Again, just go to 4patriots.com/gunmag for all the special discounts and deals. Well, good afternoon, Tom. Thanks for joining us yet again on the Guns Magazine podcast.
Where are we?
What?
Guns Magazine podcast.
Guns Magazine. Not the American Handgunner podcast, which is
I do a lot
secret.
of podcasts for Vogue and Modern Bride, so I get mixed up on the schedule. So,
wow. Well,
there's AKC. I do AKC quarterly too. So
yes.
I never know what we're talking about. So,
and I never know what you're talking about, but that's why we like to have you on.
Yeah. Okay, good.
So for the 3 people that don't know, Tom is the editor of American Handgunner Magazine and my counterpart over there at America's second best gun magazine. And we like to invite him on the podcast once in a while and get his take on things. And today we are going to hit squarely in his wheelhouse because Tom is a practicing OCD guy. And that, along with the fact that he has written a book on reloading.
See all those wall hangers behind me?
Yeah. I'm guessing Tom's reloading bench is the cleanest reloading bench in America. So I thought today we would talk about some of the ways, aside from being OCD, that you can keep your stuff in order. So when we were getting ready to hit record here on the video, Tom said, I've really been slipping. Things are just totally mussed up. As you can see right behind Tom, that's totally mussed up. Wow.
Well, that's my gun tinkering bench. My reloading bench is over there. So I'm surrounded on 3 sides. That's the photography and airgun bench, and that's the reloading bench, and that's the gun maintenance and gunsmithing and cleaning bench.
Well, I have a steel cabinet in the garage that my reloading supplies live in. And it's nice that it's a steel cabinet because you can shut your door on the mess and lock it. Yeah. And I do that for safety, of course. But fortunately, and my wife is very much like you. She is, our closets are really organized. And I do appreciate that because that's not me. It's nice to have somebody to do that. But that's another reason she wants to shut the door on my reloading supplies because they're just not really in order. So in all seriousness, aside from being a very neat and orderly person, what do you think the number one trick of keeping your reloading gear what is the number one trick to keep it in some semblance of order?
You got to design first. And just in my defense, my son-in-law designed his reloading. He's a reloader too. He designed his reloading bench in CAD because my daughter is an architect and she did it in CAD and then he built it and stained it even. I mean, I don't even do that, but I did build my own bench.
And you're jealous,
let's get that out of the way. I am not the most OCD. Okay. There's one more that's more than that. No, but seriously, what has paid off big time over the years is when I built my bench, I know this, you're not going to believe I'm saying this, but I actually planned ahead a little bit. I mean, not like we do here at the office. We don't plan ahead for anything, but for this, I did plan ahead, and I didn't appreciate how fortuitous and beneficial this one thing was going to be. And you know what it is? And I'm not claiming genius or anything. It was kind of dumb luck. So I built this system of shelves in the back of my reloading bench. And I figured, you know what? I'm going to keep my projectiles, bullets back there because it was a handy space. It's unused. You're not really working, at arm's length back in the back of the bench. Yeah. And I've got I don't know how many pounds of projectiles back there. Now, of course, being me, I did alphabetize them by caliber and then, alphabetic arrangement by brand name and stuff. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't do that. But here's what I lucked into. And this is a great tip. All that weight stabilizes my bench. You would think I have a concrete bench for my reloading presses right now because it's got 14,000 pounds of bullets sitting on those shelves in the back, or maybe 100 pounds. I don't know how much, but it's a very stable bench. You don't have to have a stable bench for reloading, but it sure is nice, when you're putting some force on a lever of a reloading press. And that worked out really good. And it keeps them out of the way.
Yeah.
So do that. Build some shelves on the back of your reloading bench for all your bullets and get lots of them to weigh it down, anchor it to the ground.
Yeah. So you have a classic basically workbench, reloading bench that you built in your lair there deep underground?
Yeah, just kind of a 2x6 workbench. And then I took a piece of inch thick plywood and put it across the top. So I have a nice, I wouldn't say pristine surface, but a flat surface on which to mount the presses. And I've got them on, riser stands. So they're at a good height when I stand up and work.
So you stand and work?
If I really get lazy, I had to get some tall stools, some swivel stools that, the tall bar stools, that would be awesome. But I don't have those yet. So,
I sit down. So now you've shamed me. I guess I'm a lazy reloader, which I will freely admit.
I would like to sit down. I just didn't really plan ahead for sitting down. It's at a standing height, and I've been too cheap to go buy a tall stool. So,
well, any auction house in the country, you can probably find an old bar stool someplace.
Yeah. Well, that would be perfect. That'd probably be about the right height too.
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh, belly up to the reloading bar.
I never leave this room. So.
Well, okay, you've got your bullets. They're weighting everything down. It's nice and stable, and I assume they're far enough back that if it topples, it'll topple over the other direction instead of finding you.
I have it against a wall. I have the whole thing is against a wall, and I also anchored the bench to the wall. It's a concrete block wall, this room down in my garage.
Yeah.
So I kind of anchored the whole bench right into that wall, so it is stable. And down below, I've got a low shelf on my bench. You know what? You can't post a picture in the notes, can you? But we'll have to write an insider article about this. But I've got 5-gallon buckets of cleaned and ready brass down there. Probably about 7 5-gallon buckets of brass, which is another 22,000 pounds of weight. Weighing this. Am I exaggerating a little bit?
Not much. I know you're a scrounger par excellence.
All right, Mr. Guns Magazine. Let's see you carry 7 5-pound buckets of brass around, okay? And you tell me it's not heavy. It's heavy.
No, it is. Back in the day when I was helping at our police range here, we scrounged every, last casing and then turned it in because that money could then be used to buy actual ammunition for practice. So I've moved my share of buckets of brass in the day, and they are heavy as all get out, especially if you haven't washed them and they're half full of mud and
dirt,
toads and rocks and whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, let's move. I forgot about that. That helps too, yeah.
So if there's an earthquake and it happens to topple over, you're going to be crushed like a bug instantly, but hopefully it'll never get to that point.
Well, I do kind of expect it to fall through the concrete block wall at some point, so end up in the other part of the garage. So we'll see. That would actually make a good photo too, kind of like before and after. But.
Well, I can only imagine. I know you live in coastal South Carolina, and the reason you have that downstairs is you're above the storm surge. That would be, I don't wish bad things on you, but it might be interesting. Just your reloading stuff might anchor the entire house if you have a 6-foot storm surge.
Well, here's the downside of that. The living area is one level up. So we got all this space in the garage with this block room in the middle. But we did have a serious threat in one of the hurricanes. And I didn't know if we would get water coming through the garage or not. So I can't even describe how much weight is down here of stuff that I had to move upstairs. Ammo shelves, parts, guns, dies, presses. I didn't worry too much about the brass, but a lot of stuff went up to the house.
That's when you had your quadruple hernia, right?
Oh my God, that was brutal. So
wow.
Yeah, and what's in the garage isn't insurable. That's the whole point. You're not supposed to put fancy stuff in the garage because that's the point. The water just run through it, if you get to that situation. So,
well, I'm sorry I brought up an unpleasant memory, but
well, it's a first world problem.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you do?
Well, moving past that heavy stuff, really the one thing that I'm always on the lookout for great ideas is how do you store your powder? Because you got to keep it dry, you got to keep it clean, you need to keep it organized, and you sure as heck need to keep it away from stuff like inadvertent cigarette butts or anything like that. So, if not, it'll make the nightly news. So, what do you do with all your powder?
I do not store it in a metal cabinet. I store it in this room. I also do not, there's no fire ever in this room. There's no lighters. There's no blowtorch. There's no, that's in another part of the garage if I ever have to heat something with a propane torch or something. So I do store it here. I found you can get these corner cabinets. I don't know if I found it at a Sam's Club or something. And those wire shelves, the restaurant shelves,
right?
It's got the posts, and you can mount the heavy wire shelves at any height you want. I found units that fit in a corner, so they're kind of like a 90-degree system with a semi-diagonal front. So so they're meant to be space efficient. Works out beautifully because the powder is something you need to store, you need to see it, you need to access it, but you're not getting different powders out every other day. So that works out really well, and it doesn't take up workspace because corners are kind of dead space anyway. So I kind of go all the way to the ceiling with those shelves, most of which is powder type stuff. And I, keep it thinned out so I can find what I'm looking for.
Yeah. And you guys don't have like the cigar festival down there in the garage?
Not in this room. We do not. I don't know. I've heard different things about storing and, metal cabinets, powders and stuff. It's not explosive. Black powder, but I don't, this is smokeless powder. So it burns really fast. You don't want fire around it, but, we're not going to have a nuclear kaboom or anything. I don't know. I just never really liked the idea of putting it inside of containing it in a steel cabinet. Yeah.
Well, my steel cabinets, I do have black powder and smokeless powder and other stuff. Like I keep my tannerite in there, separated. But these cabinets aren't sturdy enough. I don't think they'd become a pressure vessel. Yeah. I never even thought about it. I was more worried about when I'm using the propane torch, or maybe I'm smoking a cigar in the garage, even though that's where the gasoline and all that stuff is. So I generally don't do anything like that, but I do occasionally use the torch out there. But mainly, I just wanted to make sure the errant bottle rocket during the 4th of July or something like that wouldn't go sailing in there and cause a real big surprise.
What's a good safety tip when if you're designing your space to think about that kind of stuff? I don't, this is the only thing this room is used for. It's cinder block and a steel door. So whatever goes on outside the garage, it would, take an act of nature to get inside of this room. So I guess I don't really have to worry about kind of mixing my powders in the main activity area of the garage where things are going on. And I don't smoke cigars, so
well, that's your shortcoming, but we'll work on
it. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, the other, I'm really interested to hear this answer because an important part of reloading is the dies and the die sets. And of course, there's tools. We'll talk about tools in a minute, but just the dies. Those are precision machine parts, and they'll rust if you look at them crossways. And you live in an area that has an average of what, 120, 130% humidity?
312% humidity on average. So it's a little higher in the summer.
We were having a meeting one day, a video meeting, and I saw a stingray go swimming by your window of your office. So in the air.
The water is pressurized. That's why we get over 100% humidity. So
it is humid in Charleston, South Carolina.
Yes.
So
yes, it is.
What do you do to keep your dies safe and happy?
That's the beauty of a I'm kind of lucky having this separate workroom because I have a little $150 dehumidifier in here. Run a tube through the wall to the outside, bleeds into some gravel out there. And I keep it wherever I want. I keep it about 35-40% humidity in this room, and it works like a champ.
Oh, wow.
No rust, no corrosion. Nice for the powder ammo. If I'm working on some guns down here or whatever, I can leave them be and not worry about it. I did have my old dehumidifier died, and I wasn't down here for a few days, and it does not take long. I noticed I was getting rust on dyes and stuff after just a few days. It was shocking, how quickly that happens. So think about that.
I never thought about it until I asked the question of you, but as you answered it immediately. But I was sitting there thinking after I asked it is gun parts and just all that stuff. And like I said, I've spent quite a bit of time down in your neck of the woods, and the humidity is just unbelievably awful. I never thought about your dehumidifier is almost a piece of life support equipment.
It is. And, I have one out in the main garage too. And so it's kind of a double layer in here. You have to, or else stuff just gets destroyed, very, very quickly.
Wow.
So good investment that. Even if you're just working in an area in your regular garage, it's, if you keep your garage door closed most of the time, a dehumidifier will make a huge difference. And even if you're opening it to get the cars in and out, it'll dry it out pretty darn quick,
Yep. Well, for the last 2 years, we live in the upper Midwest, and our home is rather damp. It's older and doesn't have quite the ventilation that maybe a newer house does. So at the suggestion of our HVAC guy, we bought one of those standalone dehumidifiers. And even in our neck of the woods in summer, it's amazing what a difference it makes. And it's a wonderful source of distilled water for plants and everything else. I'm sure you could probably fill a swimming pool with it, couldn't you?
Pretty much, yeah. I gave up trying to empty the bucket. So I very quickly said, we're going to run permanent lines out of these things to drain. So, the bucket will fill up in a day. So, be doing that every day or every other day.
I bet more than that, because during summer, when around here August, it'll get up to 80% humidity, which I know you're laughing at and scoffing, but it feels really muggy to us. We'll end up emptying our bucket about every 8 hours. It's like a shift change thing. The bucket's full. So, but part of the reason, aside from just human comfort, is all my gun stuff is here in my office, right off the bedroom. So that was my excuse anyway. And see, now you just verified that the dehumidifier is a life safety or a gun safety piece of equipment.
I would love to have a room in the house for all this, but we do what we have to keep peace in the household. Yeah. Apparently, guests being able to sleep in a bedroom is more important than me having a dedicated gun room. So
aren't wives so silly about things like that?
Who needs family to come visit? Come on.
Exactly.
I got to reload. This works out pretty well, though.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about tools. Now, I keep all mine in the aforementioned steel cabinet. I keep all my tools in their original boxes. I feel like most tools come in pretty decent boxes to begin with, so that's a pretty safe place to keep them. And talking about humidity, I do throw some silica gel packets out there during the more humid times of the year if I'm concerned about it. But what do you do with your tools?
You were calling me OCD?
Well, hey, I'm the host here. Don't question me.
No, I take them out. I got a couple things in boxes and drawers. If it goes in a drawer, I'll keep it in the box so it doesn't get dinged up. But I hang it on the wall, and I worry about keeping the room dry. So, I don't know. You can see a little bit of stuff, here and there on the wall behind me. But, kind of pegboard's a wonderful thing with all those assorted brackets. So I like the accessibility, and everything has its place. I can find it, when I need it. So,
yeah. Excellent. Now let's talk about loaded ammo. I mainly reload rifle ammo, so I don't have to store thousands of rounds of loaded ammo around here. But I do use typically some of the less expensive plastic cases and have them all labeled. And I keep those with my other cabinet that's full of ammunition. Same kind of thing. It's all out in the garage, and I've got a shelf for hand-loaded ammo that goes in amongst all my other ammo. Is that what you do?
Yeah, I kind of, well, I used to be in the restaurant business, so, long time ago. So I got a whole bunch of restaurant shelving. That stuff is strong. You can put, you can literally, one set of 4 foot wide shelves, you can put 4 figures of weight on those things, and they're just sturdy. I just put some little pieces of plywood so it has a flat surface instead of the metal wire. But I kind of lined the whole opposite wall of this room with that kind of shelving. Some of it's brass, some of it, in Tupperware boxes, some of it's factory ammo, some of it's reloaded ammo. And I use the plastic boxes too for what would I say, quality reloads. If I'm doing something for precision or testing, or especially rifle loads, I'll use individual ammo boxes for that stuff. For my bulk practice ammo, take the family shooting, that, stuff that I load, I'll just throw it right in an ammo can and, fill that sucker up with loose rounds. But so the good stuff goes in the plastic boxes, and the cheap stuff to take people shooting is, we do that in bulk.
Yeah. And it is your ammo storage there in your cave?
Yeah, right across from me. I got a wall of shelving where I keep all that stuff. This room, this room, if you could just pick it up and put it on a scale, probably weighs close to, I don't know, 1 million pounds, maybe. Be my best guess.
Oh, yeah, we do tend to collect gear as shooters, and then doing what we do, we are blessed that people send us stuff all the time, and you got to do something with it. So storage
would be a good
quickly runs out.
You remember the moon rockets back in the day? Yeah. I'd like to see if that crawler, the one that takes it from the vehicle assembly building out to the launch pad, I wonder if that could carry my reloading room. It'd be a good test for it. I think those rockets weighed, a Saturn V, if I remember, weighs about 6 million pounds.
Yeah, something like that. And
probably not far from my room, my reloading room. So,
would you want to be the one responsible for breaking the rocket crawler, though?
I always wondered about the guy who drives that. Like, if he goes crazy and takes a corner too fast or something, does the rocket just fall over and fall off sideways, or how does that work?
I assume you've seen the video. They move so fast as to not be visibly moving. So too fast. He's got this thing firewalled. I don't know. But anyway, back to reloading. That's what we were talking about.
Right.
So any other general tips? Those are some great. Oh, okay.
Hey, here, safety tip, and I bet you do this too. You store all your powders in cabinets. I store mine on these corner shelving units. The most important thing you can do when reloading, one bottle at a time, or if you're a multi-press setup, one jug per press. Yeah. I never ever violate that rule, because what happens, I've got my Dillon 550 set up over here, and I got a bottle of CFE pistol right behind that, because that's what's in the hopper, on the press, and nothing else ever goes on that bench, because invariably you'll start reloading a batch, you'll go somewhere else, you'll have dinner, you'll go watch a football game or whatever. Next thing you know, it's the next day or 2 weeks from now, and you're like, what's that powder again in there? Don't want to mix your powders inadvertently. That leads to a very bad day. So be serious about that. Be fanatical. If you're not going to be fanatical about anything else, be fanatical about making sure only one powder is out at a time, the one you're working with. So.
Yep. And I don't know if this is the right way to do it, because what you just said makes a lot of sense to guys that reload a lot. I don't do as much volume as you do. So I always use the rule of I clean everything up when I'm done. So if I'm going to reload 50 or 100 rounds, I either do it all and put it away, or if I get tired after 20 and that's it, then I put it away. Literally, even everything goes back.
That's even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll do a lot over several days, Yeah. Because I get bug-eyed after, on a progressive reloader, about an hour, I'm kind of I'm starting to lose focus and make mistakes and do silly things. Yep. So I'll stay fresh, and I'll come back the next day and do another hour. And, if I need to load 1,000 or a couple thousand rounds of something, then I'll leave it out, but I'll leave it out carefully. So I like your method for safety better.
Well, again, I understand, if you're going to reload a bunch on a progressive, it makes sense. But in my case, since I'm doing mostly rifle stuff, and again, I'm 50 would be a pretty good session for me. But I always do have that rule, and I think most good, safe, conscientious reloaders do. Me personally, when I start thinking about anything else other than reloading, that's when the little bell goes off and says, you're done now. Because I know I've done this. I'll get back. Okay, I'll get back on task. Well, then that period of time when you think about something else gets shorter and shorter until you realize you're not thinking about what you're doing at all. And especially with rifles, that's bad juju. So I'm scared of reloading, quite frankly, and I try to be very careful.
Well, and it's amazing how quickly you forget what you did. There's, and this is something I kind of learned the hard way too. I keep lots of pens and pencils and tape and a little machine that, prints out little sticky tape labels and stuff. And I label everything because say I'll load this box of whatever 9mm, and a week later, I have no idea what that is or what it was. I don't do that anymore. But you think, oh, I'll remember, no, you won't, you get sidetracked and distracted, and you make that part of your organization process. Label. I'm going to make you laugh now that maybe I am a member of the OCD club, because let me reach into my desk drawer right here for a visual aid, my label maker. Oh, that's the one I have.
Yep.
That's the exact machine I have. I love it.
And I use it all the time. Labeled.
My 5 gallons that I told you about, they all 9mm clean, 45 ACP dirty, I label everything.
This one is a Dymo Lectra tag, and there are other similar ones. And the thing is, they seem kind of expensive, and the tapes are kind of expensive, but no more than you use, even if you're OCD like certain folks on this podcast. It makes up for it. And from the safety aspect and convenience aspect of those things stick pretty good, unless you're sticking them to plastic.
We're sharing OCD stories. I got a show and tell too.
Okay, go ahead.
So one of the presses over here is a Dillon 550, and you can get these, case heads. It's the flat piece with the 4 threaded holes for your dies. And, if you want to spend a bunch of money, you get a bunch of those case heads and you set up all your dies, and leave them. Like, well, this one's not weighted, but the dies are sitting there. Oop, there we go. But then you go, well, how do I store that? Well, Dillon sells these nifty little, blue stands. They're expensive, but they sure are nice, but they're individuals. So I said, I can make my own out of wood. Yep. Right. So I made this giant stand for a bunch of these things. And here's my label. Here's my labels.
There you go.
I know. Organization, man. Plan ahead for organization. It'll make your reloading life easier and safer.
Well, and you're absolutely correct. But I don't know how you are, but when I go to a gun shop or a gunsmith, I look at the surroundings. I look at the bench, and same with a guy that, guys will give you ammo all the time. Hey, try these out. If I look at his bench and think, wow, I'm often a little hesitant to shoot those, but if he's got a very neat, organized, I'm pretty sure that he's very conscientious. I'll do that. Or like I said, with gunsmith, you go and it's just filthy. It's like, you may do really, really good work. It's not mutually exclusive, but I've found that a clean work area doesn't have to be spotless, but a organized work area generally translates into quality work. And I look at, I'm from Indianapolis, the racing capital of the world. Sorry, Daytona. And I know folks that work in the racing industry, and it is cool if you ever go to NASCAR or any of the IndyCar, and I know it's the same in Formula One, literally you can eat off the floor. Stuff is just
garages off pit row.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the way your reloading bench should be, or something close to it. So, Tom, I think what we ought to do before we close, maybe we need to come up with the OCD Reloading Club. We could have little certificates printed up and made with pictures. A label maker.
I want to see some pictures because I will.
Good idea.
I know one of my guilty pleasures is I'll go, this sounds weird, but there is a ton of reloading photography of people's workshop and stuff on
Pinterest.
Yep. You always think of it as like the craft website, you know, but there is so much gun and reloading stuff out there.
There is.
If you haven't checked it out, check it out. You will get ideas galore. I mean, my place, what I've got is a shambles compared to some of the stuff I see out there.
Yeah.
I mean, people have dropped some serious cash on reloading rooms, and they're gorgeous. You'll be green with envy. I am.
Exactly. They are drool worthy. And what better way to waste time? I tend to get on there. A lot of guys will sit in front of the TV at night. I feel like that's a waste of time. But you know what I do? I kind of do the same thing, but I get on my computer and I do stuff like go to Pinterest and drool over the reloading rooms and the gun rooms. And, I guess we've all got our poison, right? So.
Yep.
Well, cool. Well, you had a great idea there, Tom. Folks can reach me, editor at gunsmagazine.com. Send us a picture of your reloading room, either really organized and pristine and squared away, or maybe not. We reserve the right to show it in a future episode, though, and maybe discuss your choices. But
all right.
Hey, send it to us.
Thrown down the gauntlet. So if you're more of a handgunner, send your pictures to editor at AmericanHandgunner.com.
Okay. That'll
work.
We'll
have a little contest to see which of us can get the coolest listener submissions for reloading.
Two categories, coolest and not so coolest. I really want to see some of those.
Nastiest.
Yeah.
Gankiest reloading space.
Gankiest and best. So maybe we talk to the boss. We'll get some kind of prize or something.
Yeah.
So
that actually would be funny. That would make a great, maybe companion articles in upcoming issues.
Exactly.
And, Okay.
So editor at AmericanHandgunner.com and editor at GunsMagazine.com. Well, cool. Well, Tom McHale, thank you for taking us once again into your man cave, your inner sanctum, your lair, several thousand feet below the surface, somewhere in the mountains of South Carolina, the Sand Mountains. But actually, you do have some mountains up there at the upper northwest corner. Yeah.
Well, the biggest mountain where I live is a bridge. So,
yeah.
But in the other part of the state, in the western part of the state, we have some mountains.
Well, Tom, thank you. It sounds like we are both members of the OCD Labeling Club, and I'm good with that. It's all good.
So send us labels.
Exactly. Send us some pictures of your reloading, and we'll either hold it up as an example of the way to do it or make terrible fun of you and destroy your self-esteem. So, Tom McHale, once again, thanks for joining me on the Guns Magazine podcast. As always, it was great talking to Tom McHale, the editor of American Handgunner magazine, and I hope you picked up a couple more tips to keep your reloading gear safe, organized, and happy on your shelf. Before we go, I'd like to remind you to check out the great sponsor of the Guns Magazine podcast, 4 Patriots. If you go to the website 4patriots.com/gunmag, you can check out all the exclusive offers and deals for the audience of the Guns Magazine podcast. That's the number 4, the word patriots.com/gunmag for exclusive offers. Well, that's it for this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat on behalf of everybody that works so hard here at FMG Publications. And I'd like to remind you, now get out there and get shooting.